I served 17 years in prison, but in total I got 30 years of prison.
I was born in the Belle de Mai neighborhood in Marseille during the war.
I lost my father and mother at a young age. My mother had 5 brothers. All 5 of them were known to the major crime unit. So I was raised by thugs. I couldn't become a teacher or anything like that. Then we were hungry, we were unhappy, and so we became thieves very early on. And then we climbed the ranks, if I may say so. Algeria was still French, so was Morocco and Tunisia as well. I was put on the boats for trafficking. For example, I would go to Dakar in Senegal, and there were brothels. And I would bring the money back to France. So I had my percentage, I started trafficking like that. I later used opium, like everyone else. I committed the robbery afterwards. It was always the desire, the opportunity, the money, the adrenaline too. We loved it, we loved it. I was 16 or 17 when I really started to accept myself as a thug. I always keep my mentality and my thug spirit. I will remain a thug for life, I'm telling you directly. For me, a thug already, it's an anarchist. It's a guy who has refused to conform to a, let's say, regulated society. These rules, for him, there is a word to define them, it's called mentality. The thugs of my time, I'm not talking about today's thugs, they had what we call mentality. If they didn't have that, they were either dead in score settling, they had made serious mentality mistakes because it still had to be serious, or they were blacklisted. Blacklisted meaning they were banned from the territory. They would go to the Alps or elsewhere. We didn't want to hear from them anymore. But if they were in Marseille, they were warned, we would say. We ban you from Marseille, we ban you from Bouches-du-Rhône. And when a Corsican acts like a thug, he acts like a thug. He either becomes a pimp or he sets up illegal gambling parties and he gets into drugs. That's it. Or he does all 3 at the same time. Marseille was a city that was moving. And when he arrived with the French connection, that was the icing on the cake. It was really the city, the city. All over the world, that's all people talked about. But the French connection, it's a community, mainly Corsican, with some Italians, that we are, as we say, in our environment, among people we can talk to. For example, you meet the Belgian, or Tani, or Zampa, or you meet an old-timer from the French, hello.
We are among people we can talk to?
There was a huge supply, never matched in Turkey, which centralized all the base morphine. From other countries, Syria, Lebanon, Iran, Afghanistan, it was all centralized in Turkey. So this merchandise was transformed into heroin. It was heroin afterwards. There were the chemists. The chemists, it's something wonderful for the traffic. It was the keystone of the French connection, of the traffic.
And then there was
the American buyers who came to solicit the French in the 60s. And there it was 14 or 15 times more expensive. So there was this alignment of the 3 planets. The French connection then flourished. All by itself. It's the lottery. It's the lottery. And so everyone rushed into it. I got into the French connection by going to get base morphine, and I probably had to bring back maybe 5-6 tons. There, I was valued by the elders of the French connection, because I've been to Turkey 23 times. My area was to negotiate with the Turk, the price, the quality, the timing. They had to deliver to me on a certain day so that I could give it on a certain day. Well, it was all trafficking, we know that. But there was also the passage. The passage, it was Istanbul-Marseille. And so I was calculating how I could do it, or the cars. In Turkey, there used to be only one car brand. It was the Anadolu. And I even had Turkish senators, too, who brought me goods in the Anadols. I also had Turkey on 2 boats, like today's Costa Cruises, all that, with the thing of the time. One, it's called the Lake of Nice. The other, it was called the Face of Nice. So I had the ship's captain who brought me the goods all the way to Naples. Because he made many stops in the Mediterranean, he also went to Marseille. He traveled to Naples, Marseille, Piraeus, Athens, and Barcelona, however. For me, Naples was my garden. As much as in Marseille, I had a risk to take. As much as in Naples, I had no risk. Why? Because I had sent young people, friends of mine, good friends of mine, who were sentenced to death here because they had committed robberies. They had left a fingerprint, or they were snitched on by another. I had sent them to Italy because Italy had abolished the death penalty. So when we went to Italy, we could not be extradited. So me knowing Italian people, Camorristas or mafiosi, I sent them to be taken in so that people would take them in. And in Naples, when I unloaded the goods, these people, they protected me. They had what they needed on them, and the merchandise, it was unloaded peacefully. Afterwards, I would go up to the north of Italy, I would fix it. And then I had a nice couple, who needed money to settle down, newlyweds with a registration, either Swiss or Monegasque. They said, registration, we don't stop that. The cops, they say Monaco, they didn't traffic drugs. Italy, France, and there then it was butter. They would leave the car somewhere, and I would take it and bring it back to the lab. I had several methods. There were tourist cards. There, that was also butter.
It arrived in 300-kilo batches.
I've always had an inventive mind to get that merchandise in. And I've never had a kilo stop. Never. And there you have it. I had my share, and it was good. The kilo of base morphine was worth 1,000 euros. The chemist was worth 500 euros. So the kilo of heroin came back to 1,500 euros. It was sold for 13 or 14,000 euros, 10 times more expensive in the United States. This merchandise was always at the top. Otherwise, the Americans would have sent it. And that's why the Marseillais heroin, it was the best heroin in the world. There has never been an equivalent. There will never be one. The whole world, that's all they discussed. There were conferences in America where they talked about Marseillais. In fact, the Americans came here. Nixon, he sent people from the Drug Enforcement Administration, the Federal Bureau of Investigation stuff to stop all this.
We are tightening our cooperation between the U.S. police and the French police every day. And a spectacular seizure of low-grade morphine was made. 450 kilos, that's a great success.
It made us laugh because we saw them coming with their big clogs from the owing. There were a lot of people in Marseille who worked honestly, who had their activities, their daily lives, all that and everything, but who were associated with the French connection. We're not just thugs. We can't just do things by ourselves, just among us. We have to have accomplices, mailboxes. For example, there were truck drivers who worked in Fos-sur-Mer in the chemical companies. They would leave with their trucks, they would deliberately drive into a ditch, a fake west, and there were guys who would take the acetic anhydride candies. He had the accident, the anhydride went into the field. That's not true. He was making money. There was the taxi driver, so he would go to Saint-Charles station or to Marignan airport, and he would say, I live by the water for one last ride. If there's someone who lives not far, I'll take him. So he would take a family with the wife, the husband, the children, I don't know what. He would take the client to the water, everything. That to avoid running into a roadblock. They don't stop a taxi with customers, but he had 200 loquis in the trunk. The French connection was part of the landscape. Everyone got their share. Initially, one wants to escape their condition. That's true. I said, I can't afford a 4L. If I do that, I'm going to get the Porsche there, and when the ashtray of the Porsche is full, I change, I take another Porsche. We are blinded by materialism, consumption, consumerism, and we say, we go from Karibab there, we are rich all of a sudden at the beginning. There is that, but then once we have the money, we can stop. We can say, now I have reached my goal. Well, we don't stop. We are even more motivated. We don't think about saying, I was unhappy, now I am rich. So I stop and I will buy a beautiful house. And on Sunday, I will go to Mass or I will play foosball. I don't know. No, we say I am a thug. I stay a thug. I continue to be a thug. And I am good in the juice. In the thug spirit, I meet only thugs. I talk only with thug women, thug men. It's a sect. And we are there. We don't even realize that there is an outside world. We live like that. We live like lords. We had no to say. We have to stop because we risk going to jail and because our families will be unhappy and all. No. This lifestyle, it was fabulous. You don't deprive yourself of anything. You're there, you walk into a jeweler's, you buy 2 watches. I had Vicuna coats. Back then, the coat was 5 million. Chirac and I had the same coat. That's it, that's all. You have a little girl here. There, it cost a fortune, that. You see, as you get older, you take girls younger and younger, 18, 19 years old. These girls, they are blinded by the lifestyle. They have never known that. You rent a boat, you take them to Corsica in the coves. These poor girls are amazed, and these poor girls, in quotes, because they have found their account, you go into a clothing store, for example, shoes, all that. I was there, the girl was trying on the shoes. She was telling me, they sell it, don't question if they're good. The saleswoman said, listen to your dad, he told you it was good, you see? I was throwing money out the window because money, you have to know that money is as dangerous as drugs. If they stop you with $1 million, because it's dollars. It's never francs, it's always dollars. If unchanged, it's dollars. And they only pay you $1. And sometimes these crazy Americans, they pay you with a $20 bill. Then I started to believe that in the arguments I had with them, I said, next time you pay me with a $20 bill, I'll send you merchandise, I'll send you lactose. You understand? It's about large quantities and volumes. We had American sailors who brought us this money. There was a port, it was Villefranche, where there was an American base. And the aircraft carrier, you could go visit it. Normal citizens, people and children, would put you in the middle. American sailors would give large sums of money. And you, with the star who brought you back to Villefranche, you could bring back the dollars. When you're in the thick of it, and you're living in the present moment, and you're not thinking about death or prison, there are moments of happiness, if you can call it happiness. But it's not happiness. It's not true. We can't say we were happy. Because there's always this fear in the background, in the back of our minds. This fear, because we're always on our guard, the fear of the police, the fear of the cops, the fear of informants. When someone introduces you to a guy, you don't know if he's an informant, you're scared. You test him psychologically. There's a friend of yours who tells you to be careful. He doesn't feel right. You test him even more. You become an inquisitor, someone who lives with pressure. We had money, but it's heavy. We threw it away. Because I was telling you, if they stop you with money, it's like they stopped you with drugs. It's the same. The only moment of happiness was when I had succeeded in what I had undertaken. These are the moments of happiness mentioned before. I had succeeded in what I had undertaken, so I had this moment of happiness, but it wasn't for the money. It was about having evaded, jumped, overcome all the difficulties. And I found myself with this money, with my friends, and with security. It's over. I no longer had the anxiety of being arrested by the police or a trap hunt from a rival thug. And you live with this anxiety of arrest. And when you get arrested, you say, phew, at least it's over. I will be able to defend myself. I will be able to argue. I will be able to know exactly what they want from me. I will be able to know what they have against me. Because there's too much. You do too many things. You don't know what they have against you. As much as you stop for a car theft that you did 2 years ago. I was arrested on August 28th. I was in the Levant Islands. I had a house. We lived naked, completely naked. And so I feel something, but it's pouring rain. So I can't go up to the village to get the newspaper. But in the newspaper, they had already arrested everyone. There were 30 people in Sicily and 30 in France. So I could have saved myself there. There, they couldn't find me 2 days later. Days later, when it's not raining anymore, in the morning, 6 o'clock, I lift my head and I see guys dressed up. I thought they were people coming to kill me. What do? I start running into the hill. One of them flashes a ruby at me and says, Milou, don't move, it's the police. I'm happy I'm innocent. You start there, I didn't do anything. So if it's the police, it's good. And they made me dress up. They took my boat, the Bird of the Islands. They took me to Lavando. There they were 7 or 8, and they took me into custody. I spent 4 days in custody, and they told me, we forbid you to speak. We will only ask you one question, name, first name, age, all that, and everything. But you do not speak. I maintain my innocence and choose to remain silent. He told me precisely, that's why we say we forbid you to speak. Because if we ask you questions, you will confuse us. We know who you are. We've known you since you were 14. So don't talk, you'll speak to the judge. So I had to deal with this gentleman, Judge Michel. I asked the judge what I was doing there. He said I would get 15 years and to do nothing. I said, why 15 years? What is this number? You're the one judging me. You're an investigating judge. You're not a presiding judge. Every time I open my mouth, he would say 15 years. I go to court. I get 15 years. They take us to a correctional court to convict us, even without evidence. You see, because if we are convicted, if we are tried by the French people, we are all acquitted. Me, there's not a gram, there's nothing. Me, I speak to the jury. Believe me, after 4 or 5 days, I can make the jury cry. The woman, I tell you, it's okay. In the meantime, this guy gets killed.
The Corbusier building in the 6th district of Marseille. It's 1 p.m. Below lies the service road of Michelet Boulevard. A motorcyclist in a white helmet stops at a red light. He is joined by another motorcycle on which 2 young people are sitting. 3 gunshots ring out. The investigating judge, Pierre Michel, is hit by 3 .43 caliber bullets, 2 in the head and 1 in the chest. Death is...
I was accused of likely abandoning the order to have this guy killed instantaneously when I had nothing to do with it. He wasn't weighing on my stomach. I don't care about him. A judge can't say, hello, sir, I'm giving you the red carpet. You want some chocolate? No, he's a judge. He insults you and everything. Thank you. He was not condemned by the milieu, Judge Michel. He was hated by the milieu, but there was no contract put on him. He was not condemned. He could have ended up as a prosecutor in Marseille or Paris, and then it was over. There were other investigating judges who were 10 times harder than Judge Michel, who were even in bad faith, who were liars, but they are alive. They died a natural death. I can understand that there are people who have a kind of fantasy because they don't know, they don't have the ins and outs, they don't know what we live, they don't know what we do, they don't know what we have done, they only saw the surface, they only saw the attitude. But they don't know what the granddaddy did. They don't know what I did. They don't know what Tani Zampa did. Tani, he did things he shouldn't have done. But Zampa, he was a guy of Italian origin who was in a clan where there were only Italians, French, who were very powerful. But he had a psychological problem, this guy. He was uncomfortable in his own skin. He made a lot of mistakes. But he had this kind of... When he was outside prison, where he spent only 11 or 12 years in total, he had a certain ability. When not in prison, he was brilliant. You had to see, he was beautiful. He immersed himself. He had artists like Alain Delon introduced to him. People, even the small thugs, even the thugs that I knew, even some of my friends. There's the big one here. They don't like over there. But if you scratch the varnish, I tell you, 0. It was all for show. He had this ability to gather people and send them to the coal and take apart. But when it was time to go to war, when it was time to go to the robbery, when it was time to go, I knew him from childhood. He was a pimp at first. He was pimping. I used to meet him often. He knew we had shared some money. That is to say, in one part there were 11 of us and he was he. But he knew that I didn't like him. In fact, he told me several times. You don't love me, I said, I don't hate you. There were big disagreements. It was resolved in the best way possible. They eliminated Zampa and the 80 or 120 soldiers he had with him. Anyway, it could only end like this. You can't reasonably do what I've done all my life without having problems. And since I'm still alive, it's, as we say at home, watch out, I'm watching out. If you have a problem with someone who is of your condition, who is as capable as you, who is maybe even tougher than you, you have to go all the way, because otherwise you're going to end up getting killed. You know that he won't pass. So you have to take the lead. I'm telling you again and again, I can't myself be a thug for so many years and not have had problems. There were wars. The wars, they were between clans, and when one of the two clans won the war, we had 3-4 years of rest. Or there was a guy who killed another guy, but rarely. It wasn't like today. It wasn't on fire. It wasn't... We let a lot of things slide before killing a guy. We would. During the war, we were strict and uncompromising, letting nothing slide or pass. When I, for example, was in a clan, I encountered an opposing clan. Even if I didn't know them, I had to kill them. That's it. They were an enemy. And then it wasn't the same way of killing. It wasn't the same kind of settling scores. For example, if we were in a car, we would wait for the guy at 6 in the morning for him to come out. If he was taking his kids to school, we would leave, because we knew that if the little one was next to him, or the wife, he would be traumatized, and he might get hit by a stray bullet, because you never know how it ends. As much as the guy scrambles, boom, boom, you kill him, and then you see him still moving, you kill him and you kill the guy next to him. You don't kill innocents. That has never happened. We know, right? Never. Even in the north, never ever. Even in Paris, never. I witnessed small Dorinsons being killed here today. Furthermore, there is the so-called modus operandi here. Me, when I see a settling of scores, there are very few, as I quote from my own environment. If I see guns, calibers, automatics, cylinders, pistols, 15 shots, for example, I roughly know where it comes from, the modus operandi. But when I see the Kalashnikovs, a thug has never used that. The Kalashnikov does not exist. It's a destructive weapon. It's a weapon. You can't hold it so they have arms like this. They are 18 years old and they have Kalashnikovs in their hands. And when they light it up, it goes off. In fact, they like it. They all think they're Scarface, and so there's someone who passes by and he dies. It's crazy stuff. I say that today's youth, who unfortunately don't have enough perspective, intelligence, analysis to see things as they are, to have at least a gram of balance to say, be careful. There you go. They have no mistrust. And when they see a guy who has succeeded in major crime, and they say to themselves, me too, I can become like him, and it's very dangerous because they don't know the path between this person and them. After the French Connection, there was what we call the American thug, the Italian American. And strangely, let's say it's a bit diluted in the sense that we accepted things that we wouldn't have accepted at the time. You have to know that at the time it was hard. Hard. For example, it was forbidden for a homosexual to act like a thug. They didn't understand that a guy who is homosexual can be as thuggish as any other guy. Heterosexual. The real thugs, the old thugs, they would say, yes, we respect him, yes, we greet him, but he will never be a thug. He will never set foot in the bar I frequent. And oddly enough, the smart thugs, they said, but this is ridiculous. What is this backward peasant shepherd thing? And they accepted, let's say, I speak homosexual, so I can talk, for example, a crook, a guy who was writing checks, he wasn't a thug. A pimp, he wasn't a thug. We took the money from the pimps, we were pimping the pimps. We went from thug, really the guy, he didn't care about anything. And then we gradually accepted things. The pimps came, the crooks came, the homosexuals came. And gradually it unravels, it goes away. And today's youth, they only look at these people. In fact, look at the money. If you are rich and you have abandoned your mother, they say you are motherless. Intrinsically, these people, they are not people that I would qualify as thugs. They no longer have any morals they no longer have a teacher or an educator. They have nothing. They are all enemies, since emptiness is the enemy. So me, when I met some young people at Belle de Mer, I told them, I respect you, and I only ask you one thing. If you act like thugs, but don't do just anything. If you do just anything, you're not thugs, you're scoundrels, and you know what a thug is, it's the opposite of a scoundrel. Me, in this environment, I will never set foot again. I will only set foot if the environment becomes my environment again. But today, it's not my environment.